Coming to you live from Farmer Dave's World Headquarters here in Drake, Massachusetts, I'm Cassie.
And I'm Stacey.
And we're here to help you
prepare your share.
Want in-season tomato taste in the off-season? Then can those tomatoes. This technique segment combines tips for canning along with the blanching technique we've shown in another VEGISODE.
Here's the setup. Have your water bath canner ready with a rack, filled and coming to a boil. Put your mason jars in it at the beginning. We have just finished doing that right here. Lids and bands have already been washed and set aside.
In a stock pot, bring water to a boil for blanching and have a bowl of ice water in the sink, or we have it on our counter ready to go. In a third stock pot, have water simmering. This water will be used to top off the canning jars once they're filled with tomatoes.
Now to start. Grabbing tomatoes, and you're going to score the bottom of them. You take a paring knife, very gently, not cutting too deep, just enough. Let's do, I think our stock pot is large enough for 4.
If you're worried about cutting too deep, you can also use the back end of the knife with just the tip, just to score the skin.
Oh, it's a good tip actually. Okay, at this point, you are going to drop them into the boiling water for 30 to 45 seconds, but do not go longer than a minute. That's going to cook the tomato and then it's going to be mushy. You're going to scoop them out and then drop them in the ice bath. Hold on 1 second, here we go. Thank you. Thank you. That one's small. Yeah, we could do one more. It's big enough in here. Okay, perfect. That goes in. So now we're going to wait about 30 to 45 seconds. And then once we plunge them into the ice bath, the peels should start coming right off.
Get the next tomatoes in while you slip the peels off of the first batch. Line them out in a sheet tray. Stacey's putting the ones into the cold water now. We'll be slipping them out very shortly. I'm going to continue doing this. It helps having 2 people, but you don't really need to, as long as you're organized.
The process is just a little bit slower, but it's fine. It's very meditative, actually. There we go. Perfect. So at this point, these are the tomatoes that were in the boiling water that we just put in the ice water. And as you can see, the skin is sliding right off.
Perfect.
There we go.
That's where the scoring process really comes in handy.
Got the hot water right underneath it, then got the cold water right underneath it. Watch, here's a second one. I don't even have to use the paring knife. These are perfect. Coming right off in my hand. Now the reason that we do peel the tomatoes, you don't have to, but once you can them and you go to cook with them, sometimes the tomato skins can leave a bitter flavor. So if you're using this and making your own sauce in December, you just get that little bit of a bite from the skin. So that's why we do this. Very nice. Okay, thank you very much.
Very well.
Now, the next thing that you're going to do, and Cassie's going to do this while I put more in the boiling water, is you want to remove the stem. And then any areas, these are pretty perfect tomatoes, but any areas that look like they may have been bruised under the skin that you didn't see at first, you're just going to cut those off.
All right. Now, when I was a kid, we had to do this every single fall. This is the part that I used to hate, especially because I used to get a lot of paper cuts as a kid. You want to make sure that you are wearing gloves if you do have any small cuts or anything like that. It's going to sting real bad. All right, just going to pop that stem off. There we go. Perfect.
I know this is probably a shameless plug, but I've never actually seen tomato skins come off tomatoes so well, except for the tomatoes that I've gotten here at the farm. Yes, it is a plug, but it is true.
Thanks, Farmer Dave.
Next batch in.
Next batch out.
Next batch out. Here, you can grab some.
Oh, thanks, Stace.
Now, as far as the seeds go, when we get ready to put them in the jars, we're going to quarter them because these are pretty large tomatoes. It's really up to you. I leave just the seeds and the inside, the jelly, in there. It will, when you simmer it to make sauce, it'll break down later on. It's not really that big of a deal. I don't think it really adds any or takes anything away from it. The skins, though, are what really adds any bitterness. Once the jars are hot, turn the stove down to simmer, remove the jars. You don't want that water to be boiling when you're putting your arms in there. Line them up next to where you're working. We have done this already.
Once you have a tray of tomatoes peeled, cut out the area on the stem like we've done here. Any bruises you might see, quarter them and start filling the jars.
Here we go with jar filling. These tomatoes are a little on the large side, so we're doing more than quartering them. We're probably cutting them into almost eighths to be able to stuff the jars with them. So I'm gonna give you 2 jars.
Thanks.
You work on those. I have these. Now at this point, you wanna stuff them as much as you can. Thank you. And the reason for that is we're going to be topping them off with hot water. You can also use warm tomato juice if you wanted to, but if you don't get them totally full before you top them off, and I don't know if it really shows, these are ones that I already had done. I have a little bit more liquid in there, so if you leave this sitting for a while, the tomatoes are going to separate from the liquid and there's going to be a layer of liquid on the bottom just because I didn't stuff them quite enough. These tomatoes are very juicy, folks. I don't know if you're watching the flying liquid. I mean, that's a half a tomato. So we're quartering it and then we're cutting those quarters in half, so eighths. And getting them in there. Now, keep in mind, you don't want to mash them, but you're trying to get them in there fairly firmly. You are going to leave about 1/4 of an inch headspace, which means you're going to bring them up to 1/4 of an inch from the top, and that includes the liquid that we put in there. That allows for a little bit of an expansion space once we put them into can. Beautiful. May I have a few more tomatoes, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. One more thing to do. So this can is totally full, this jar. You want to do a teaspoonful of lemon juice. Now we're water bath canning. And with water bath canning, you want to make sure you have enough acidity. Tomatoes are pretty acidic. So we're just using that teaspoonful in each jar, and that will help keep it safe, basically. Oh my goodness, look at how pretty. Hold yours up. How pretty is that? All right, we have a few more jars to fill, so here we go. All right, so here we have them filled. We have the lemon juice put in each one of them. We're now gonna top it off with water. I have water on the back of the stove boiling, and I've turned it down now, so we just wanna make sure that we top it all off before canning. Put the funnel in. Now gradually put this hot water in. You've got a lot of tomatoes in here, and it's going to take a minute or two for that water to totally seep down. So this is the process that really is, you need patience for this. If you leave spaces, that's when you're going to get those gaps when it's all done. It doesn't mean you have to do anything over, but it just looks prettier. Presentation is a little bit better. So we'll let that sit. I'm going to put some more in this one. This one down. If you could get, or actually you could use the knife and just stab it in there a little bit, because there seems to be some
Trapped air bubbles.
Trapped air bubbles, so. And that will get the water to go down.
This is working perfectly.
Yep, see, it's dropping
Down
already.
all the sides.
Very nice. Now see, this one just filled up really, really well. And I'm bringing the water all the way up. This is a great example. Filled up, I don't have any air pockets, and the water came all the way up to 1/4 of an inch. So this is exactly what you want yours to look at before it goes in the canner.
There's an air pocket.
Oh, did I miss one? Did I miss one?
Very gently. Very hot.
All right, you're the air pocket controller.
I am the air pocket control officer.
Also keep in mind that you can use tomato juice for this if you would like to use tomato juice. I guess that enhances the tomato flavor, but honestly, I like to just use water because I think the farm tomatoes are flavorful enough, honestly. I'm not kissing up. These are
Perfect.
perfect. And even though this isn't a jam episode, I'm using the big jam ladle and the funnel because it's still really hot water. There we go. I think those two front ones are pretty good.
They are.
I'm gonna reach over you just so you don't want to burn you. That looks good. That looks good.
Let me grab this one.
Yeah, if you can hit that one with the knife, that would be
will.
great. Now she's not mushing them, she's literally putting the knife on the side, and that is breaking up any air bubbles that are trapped.
Just kind of running it along the side of the jar. Not actually stabbing down into the tomatoes, just push it along the side, push the tomatoes in to allow the water to move around the knife down the side of the jar.
I think those look pretty good, actually.
I think so.
Alrighty.
Great.
At this point, we've made a little bit of a mess, as you can see. It's just tomato guts. So we're gonna do a quick wipe down, and then we're going to wipe down the jars so that there is a good seal before we go and put the lid and the band on it. So we'll be back in 1 second.
Wipe those rims so you get an even seal, then tighten the bands to fingertip tight. You're gonna turn the stove back up to high and under the water bath canner and lower your jars in, making sure there's 2 inches of water over the lids of the jars.
I'm gonna lower 2 of these in, putting them right next to the stove. You do not wanna try and carry them with the tongs. Cover off. Spring-loaded tongs. Put in the jar. And right in it goes. Now, we're going to have to add a little bit of water just because this has been boiling for a while, so you have some evaporation. So we'll add a little bit of water so it comes to 2 inches over the top of the jars. We're going to wait for it to come up to a boil. Put the cover on. Once it comes up to a boil, that's when you start timing. Now, we're going to be doing a full load. So at this point, the time for quarts is 45 minutes, and the time if you were to do pints is 40 minutes. So once it comes up to a boil, we're going to start the timer and then let it go.
Once the time is up, turn the stove off, remove the lid. Let the pot cool down for about 10 minutes, then remove the jars to a towel in a covered area where they will be undisturbed for 24 hours. Cover them with an additional towel to keep the jars at a room temperature slowly, and it decreases the chance of jar breakage. You should hear that distinctive pop as the seals form. Once they're cool, press on the tops. This isn't sealed yet because we haven't put it in. So you should not hear anything. These are already done, okay? If any of them flex and pop like this, you have two choices. You put them back in, reprocess them for the original amount of time, or you just enjoy them now. Put them in the fridge, use them for dinner. No big deal. We hope we've convinced you to try and can some tomatoes this year. Once you get the system down, it's not difficult, and you'll have delicious tomatoes to slip into many recipes. For more information at canning, take a peek at www.freshpreserving.com, www.pickyourown.org, and our VEGISODEs on jam and pickles.
And that's a wrap.